Welcome to the Horror Next Door. This is all the horror movies we watched in February 2023. Links to our Letterboxd accounts are in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, would you kindly subscribe?
Thinner from 1996, which we watched on HBO Max. This is based off of a Stephen King story. I've seen it quite a few times, and it's not the best movie ever, but I think I have nostalgia as a factor for one of the reasons that I do like it. I think there are lots of really cool things about this movie. I know that some people might think it's cheesy, and it was, released in the 90s, so some of this stuff is probably offensive to someone watching it for the first time now, but I think the little bit of corniness and the freaky effects pair well, and I still like it, so I do recommend this movie.
Yes, I feel as though I've only seen bits and pieces of this movie. If I have watched it all the way through, I completely forgot most or majority of the movie. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to watch this. And I really liked it. It's probably not the greatest Stephen King based movie out there, but it's definitely not the worst one either. Right down the middle, average. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it. It was a fun watch. Skinamarink from 2022, which we watched on Shudder. I definitely did not enjoy this movie as much as Hellcat did. I definitely think this is one of those movies where you're either going to absolutely love it or absolutely hate it, and I am in the not liking it category, so I do not recommend it, sorry, but I know Hellcat liked it a lot more than me, so I'll let her talk about it.
From what I have seen, this has definitely been a pretty divisive film. I appreciate the experimental aspect of it. I was a little bit shocked when literally the entire movie was just shots of hallways and ceilings and floors and cabinets and furniture and the kids' feet and stuff. I was expecting at some point in time for it to expand a little bit beyond that, and I was a little bit shocked that it never did. But in the end, that didn't really bother me because I definitely felt on edge and like a lot of tension and some anxiety while watching this movie. There were a couple of really freaky parts. We watched it in the dark on the surround sound. I have to shout out mutual Letterboxd follower Rylan Repulsive for his review and stating that you should watch this film at home. I completely agree. It was very slow and there were lots of parts where it was very quiet, and I could see how watching it in a theater would be super annoying. I don't think I would have enjoyed it nearly as much if I were dealing with people chomping on popcorn and making noise and stuff. So I would recommend watching this movie. You do have to be patient. You could probably just watch the trailer and know whether or not you're going to like it, so keep that in mind. But if you do watch it, I also strongly recommend just turning all the lights off, turning the sound up, and watching it in a quiet place. Gone in the Night from 2022, which we watched on Hulu. This is a movie that we mentioned in one of our favorite trailer videos. I know it was largely probably just because it has Winona in it. I think some of what was predicted when we spoke about this film in our trailer video was correct, but a couple of things did come out of left field. I wouldn't say it was the most exciting or earth-shattering thing. I would loosely recommend it just basically if you are a Winona Ryder fan, or maybe want something you don't have to 100% pay attention to or get invested in, or you're just kind of bored one night. It's very average, very mid.
Yeah, I agree that this movie is very average, but it was a fun watch, and there were some things towards the end that kind of were like, what? Okay. For that, I would recommend this movie. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but not the best either. Winona did a great job. Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge from 1989, which we watched on Shudder with Joe Bob. This movie was not very good at all, and if it wasn't for watching it with Joe Bob, I probably would have fast forwarded through it. One of the things that really did stand out for me is the fact that Pauly Shore is in this. It's one of his first films, I believe, and he's like the comic relief, obviously. Yeah, this movie's just very forgettable for me. I don't really remember much about it. I just remember Pauly Shore. I don't know. It was just very forgettable for me, and I do not recommend it. Unless you want to watch it with Joe Bob, which that I would highly recommend it.
There is definitely some 80s charm. The fact that it takes place in a mall and it's basically a couple of Valley girlfriends that we're focusing on. I mean, those are really the aspects that I liked about this. It's what it sounds like. It's Phantom of the Opera, but in a mall with teenagers. It's over the top. It's ridiculous. I wouldn't necessarily call it boring, but it almost just didn't even feel like a horror film because there weren't very many actual death scenes, at least not that I can remember. I mean, I would have to agree that it's a little bit forgettable for me too. I just remember thinking that the Eric character, the Phantom guy, was just super duper powerful, and it made no sense where he was getting such strength and resilience from. So I guess that was kind of hilarious at times, but unfortunately I wouldn't really recommend this movie. I also don't think I would have been paying as much attention or maybe even finished it if it wasn't for Joe Bob. Nekromantik from 1988, which we also watched on The Last Drive-In on Shudder. This film is notorious. It's well known for being offensive and disgusting and, you know, whatever else. I mean, it's in the name, Nekromantik. After hearing so much about it, I was actually kind of excited to see this on Joe Bob's Valentine special because I was like, wow, I finally get to see this. But I don't get all the hype at all. I really couldn't find anything to like about this movie. There are only two little things about it that I feel like were truly disgusting or vile or like so offensive. I mean, I guess I just think it was trying a little bit too hard, and maybe the low budget could have been a part of the problem. Perhaps if I had seen this earlier in my life, I would see it differently. Maybe I would appreciate it a little bit more, but I just think the way the whole thing came together is not my thing at all. I definitely would not recommend this movie.
I do not recommend this film. I didn't really know much about this movie until Joe Bob talked about it. To me, it just seems to be like another one of those movies that everybody talks about it like it's the greatest thing because it's so shocking and it's so offensive or whatever you want to call it. But in reality, it's really not that good of a film. But for some reason, people like it. I don't know. A film that comes to mind is Silo or The 120 Days of Sodom. Everybody talks about that movie like it's so great. Honestly, can you really say you actually like it? It's not really that good. Let's be honest. This movie's not really that good. The ending was ridiculous. I don't know. I feel like it's just a movie with scenes after scenes of, hey, how can we shock someone or just offend someone or whatever? There's really not much story to it. I didn't like it and I don't recommend it. The Menu from 2022, which we watched on HBO Max. I actually really enjoyed this much more than I thought I was going to. The trailers made it look really kind of stupid, in my opinion. It definitely gets like more fucked up as it goes along, and you're kind of wondering like, where is this all heading? And, you know, what is this chef guy's motivation and stuff like that. So at the end, when things really start hitting the fan, it's like, it's really messed up, but cool at the same time once you understand everything that's going on. I think Ralph Fiennes did a great job in this. He really does play a creepy person very well. You might remember him in Red Dragon. He played a creepy ass person in that movie as well. And he was also in the Harry Potter films as Lord Voldemort. So he's obviously great at playing just like a villain or just a creepy ass person. So hopefully he keeps that up. But I would recommend this movie. Check it out. It definitely was a lot better than advertised. So I think you will enjoy it.
I already spoke about The Menu in our What We Watched video for November-December 2022. So if you would like to hear more of my opinion on it, you can check that out. It's around the 9-minute mark. For now, I'll just say that I had just seen the movie somewhat recently, only a couple months prior, and I was still really excited to watch it again and to see Psycho's reactions to some of the twists and reveals and things. So I had a lot of fun watching it again. I would probably watch it a third time as well, and maybe more, so I definitely do recommend it. The Witch, Part 1, The Subversion from 2018, which we watched on a DVD that I bought really cheap at Big Lots, but it looks like it's also streaming on Shudder if you would like to check it out. I would say this is a little bit too long, especially considering it's only part 1 of a continuing storyline. However, it is very action-packed. It is very crazy. I wouldn't necessarily say it's ever boring. Basically, when I was watching it, it reminded me of the Jessica Alba show Dark Angel that was on in the 90s, or maybe it was early 2000s. I don't even remember now, but it was kind of that same storyline, except very amped up and obviously a lot more wild, like gore and blood and stuff. I guess maybe that was a part of the reason that I liked it, is because I liked that show. I'm just not 100% sure if I could recommend it or not. I feel like a lot of people would lose patience with it. I personally liked it, so I would recommend it. I just don't think it's for everyone. It has sort of this like fantasy or science fiction type vibe to it that might not really work well for horror fans.
Yeah, this movie is just hard to explain to someone, so I'm not even going to try to say much about the plot and stuff, but it does have some cool scenes, especially at the very end. If you are a fan of Korean cinema, whether you're into action or not, you definitely like horror movies. That's why you're listening. I would say check it out, but overall, I would recommend this movie. I think it does have some pretty crazy scenes in it. That's as much as I'll say. See for Me from 2021, which we watched on Shudder. And if you don't have Shudder, apparently this is also playing on Hulu. This movie is also not a straight up horror film. It is more of a thriller, but whatever, we're still going to talk about it. To me, this movie was a lot of fun. I think the main thing that I liked about this movie was the See For Me app that the main woman uses, and she gets connected with someone who's apparently a army veteran, but she's actually a gamer as well. And I like that whole dynamic that the gamer is helping this blind woman see and fight off these intruders. I actually had a lot of fun with this movie, and I would highly recommend it.
For me, this was a pretty middle of the road, average watch. I wasn't really all that excited about it, nor did I dislike it. It was just what it was. I too enjoyed the aspect of a gamer who's playing a Call of Duty or something similar, guiding her and telling her where to aim the gun and things like that when she can't see. I thought that was really cool. I don't know if it was the fact that the main character was a little bit shisty, you know, kind of had her own little schemes going on and things like that, or if it was just too slow or what, but I wasn't as interested in this as I was hoping to be. Regardless, it was still a good watch and I would recommend it once for sure. Children of the Corn 3 Urban Harvest from 1995, which we watched on DVD. Despite my low Letterboxd rating, because this isn't a good film, I actually liked it more than part 2. I loved the quote-unquote Isaac replacement in part 2. Like, that actor was kicking major butt and he was really putting his heart in it, and good for him. He was the best part of the movie. This one was just so wild and over the top and crazy, and also I thought it was hilarious because the quote-unquote Isaac replacement in this one is the same kid from Demonic Toys, and somehow locked away in my brain somewhere, I knew that immediately when he appeared on the screen despite never having seen this movie. I don't know how I remembered him, but I think it's because he just has a very creepy demeanor and he just has the perfect face for a friggin' little like horror child. You know what I'm saying? Like a creepy kid in a horror film. It's actually kind of a shame because I looked him up after we watched this and he pretty much stopped acting after this, I think. But I think in the same way the Isaac replacement in part 2 carried the movie, that this kid, Daniel Cerny, carried this movie. He was definitely the best part. There were also some very 90s moments that were hilarious and ridiculous that probably made me like it more than I should. It's a Children of the Corn sequel, so you know what you're getting into. If you get past that barrier, then yes, I do recommend this movie.
So the one aspect about this film that I do not understand why they decided to go in that route is the fact that this takes place in an urban setting. All the other Children of the Corns, as far as I know of, are in the middle of nowhere. And then this one's like, oh, we're going to go to the city. I don't know. Just another gimmick, I guess. All the stuff that happens at the very end of the movie is definitely just over the top and kind of ridiculous. There's a giant monster that appears and I don't even know what it's supposed to be or what it's supposed to represent. It's just crazy, kind of cheesy, but kind of fun at the same time. And also, Charlize Theron appears in this movie as one of the school kids that gets rounded up by this new Isaac leader guy. And if you blink, you'll miss her, but she's there. I guess I kind of feel that part 2 and part 3 are kind of on par for me. Neither one of them were really much better than the other. I do like the quote unquote Isaac character in the second one over this one. I probably wouldn't recommend this movie unless you are just a diehard Children of the Corn fan, or if you've never seen these movies and you really want to watch them, then check it out.
As always, we thank you so much for watching. Leave us a comment if you have any horror movie recommendations, and we will add them to our watch list. Until next time.